Three religions, one God, different sacred texts, and centuries of conflict, wars, disputes, and bloodshed. Christianity, Islam, Judaism. The question almost no one dares to ask is simple. Is there a real holy war between these religions, or are we facing something much more human and much less divine? And even more importantly, who really benefits from all this? Today, we will traverse history, faith, power, and money without taking sides, without dogmas, just facts. Before we continue, do three things that help our channel immensely. Subscribe, leave a like, and comment truth above all down below. This video wasn't made to please, it was made to awaken. So let's start with the big question. Does a holy war actually exist? Historically, there is no official, continuous, and unified holy war between Christians, Muslims, and Jews. What we find instead are human conflicts that, throughout the centuries, have conveniently adopted religion as their justification. Take the Crusades, for example. They weren't sparked by divine revelations whispered from the heavens. The real motivations were far more earthly: territory, control of trade routes, and raw political power. Faith was simply the emotional fuel poured on the fire to get the masses moving. It was the ultimate recruitment tool. In Islam, we have the concept of jihad. Originally, its primary meaning refers to an internal, spiritual struggle for self-improvement. But, at certain points in history, this concept was reinterpreted by some to justify expansionist wars and territorial conquest and Judaism. It doesn't have a mission of global conversion. The wars you read about in the Old Testament are highly contextual, linked to the survival and establishment of a specific people in a specific land, thousands of years ago. So what's the pattern here? The war doesn't start with faith. It starts with the human asterisk. Use asterisk of faith. Religion becomes the mask worn by ambition. This brings us to the hidden engine behind it all: money and power. You'd be hard-pressed to find any major religious conflict in history that didn't have powerful economic and political interests pulling the strings from behind the curtain. Think about Jerusalem. Is it disputed solely because it's a sacred city? Of course not. It's a strategic geopolitical asset. It's a symbol of dominance. Ancient empires, medieval kingdoms, and modern states have always understood a fundamental truth: whoever controls the spiritual narrative controls the people. Throughout history, we see religious leaders and political leaders becoming almost indistinguishable. Sacred texts have been interpreted and reinterpreted to fit the needs of the moment. The fear of a divine enemy, an infidel, has been expertly used to unite the masses against a common foe, distracting them from their own suffering or the corruption of their leaders. And yes, there are clear historical records of individuals who infiltrated religious structures purely for personal gain. They sought power, influence, wealth, and social control. Faith became their tool, and God, all too often, became their argument. A divine excuse for very human greed? Now, let's look at the point where all three faiths seem to converge: the end times. In Christianity, the end times are described as a period of great tribulation, involving wars, false prophets, and widespread apostasy, culminating in the return of Jesus and a final judgment. It's presented not as a political event, but a spiritual and moral one. Islamic eschatology also speaks of a future time of great conflict. It predicts the coming of a figure known as the Mahdi, the return of Isa, who is Jesus, and a final judgment by Allah. The interesting overlap here is that Jesus plays a key role in Islamic end-time prophecy, too, though he is seen as a prophet, not as the Son of God. Judaism, on the other hand, awaits the coming of the Messiah and a future messianic age of global peace and divine justice on earth. This era will be one of spiritual restoration for the Jewish people and the world, but it does not recognize Jesus or Muhammad as prophets. So, while the details differ, all three religions speak of a final reckoning, a period of conflict and correction, and a definitive judgment. The core themes are there. What changes is the protagonist, the one who will lead humanity through this final chapter. This leads us to a fascinating and often contentious question: why is Muhammad mentioned in the Bible? The answer is simple and historically undeniable. The canon of the Bible was completed centuries before Muhammad was even born. The last books of the New Testament were written in the 1st century, while Muhammad lived in the 7th century. Therefore, he couldn't possibly be mentioned by name, and there's no direct reference to Islam. So then, how did Muhammad become such a powerful and influential figure for billions of people if he has no biblical validation? Because his authority doesn't come from the Bible, it comes from the unique historical context of 7th century Arabia, region of diverse tribes without a single, unifying religious identity. He brought them a new singular text, the Quran, and with it, he forged a new spiritual, social, and political identity all at once. Muhammad wasn't constructed as a biblical character. He was the founder of a completely new religious tradition. His strength lies in the internal coherence and message of Islam itself, not in whether he's validated by a pre-existing scripture. So, when we put all these pieces together, the faith, the power, the money, the politics, the fear, and the hope, we arrive at an uncomfortable but clear conclusion. The centuries of conflict are not a war of God. They are a war of human narratives. Each religion, with its own texts, context, and history, sincerely believes it is on the side of ultimate truth. The problem doesn't begin with belief. It begins when faith is sharpened into a weapon. It begins when someone who believes differently is labeled an enemy. And it spirals out of control when God's name is used to justify bloodshed and conquest. Perhaps the greatest conflict in human history isn't between Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. It says the eternal struggle between our own conscience and the forces of manipulation that seek to control us. If this video made you think, show your support by liking it and subscribing to the channel for more content that challenges the narrative. And let me know in the comments, what do you believe is the real root of these conflicts? Finally, share this with someone who needs to hear a different perspective. The truth doesn't choose sides. It simply withstands the test of time, and not everyone is ready to face it. Thanks for watching.